The opinions expressed on this program are solely those of its hosts, guests, or callers, and do not necessarily represent the opinions of WTBR-FM, its management, other producers, or sponsors.
Hi, everyone. You're listening to Backstory. Let's hear it on WTBR-FM Pittsfield with Roberta McCulloch-Dews of the Mayor's Office in the city of Pittsfield. Thanks for tuning in. So today we have with us Mary McGinnis, founder of First Friday's Artwalk, owner of Mary's Carrot Cake, longtime LPN, and a tried and true aficionado for home restoration. Sure. Welcome, Mary. Let's get started. How are you?
Hi, Roberta. Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So I always like to set the stage with some background information. So you were raised in Pittsfield?
Yes.
All right. So do you know how many generations your family dates back to?
So Pittsfield, Dad came here in the early 60s for GE. He was an engineer in naval ordnance.
Okay.
So I was born in Baltimore.
Oh.
And 8 of us came up here slowly. And since I was a baby, I've been here.
Wow. Yeah. So which neighborhood did you grow up in?
Bartlett Avenue.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What were some of the fun things you used to do as a kid?
The girls' club was a stone's throw away because we were at 31 Bartlett. So.
Okay.
Mom and Dad were smart. They had all these kids, and they just had us walking everywhere. Boys Club, too, CYC, Catholic Youth Center, the Common for skating.
Skating?
Yeah, we were able to skate back then, and it was always cold in the winter.
How did it look? Where did you skate?
Right, the whole Common they flooded, and it stayed cold the whole year. There was a warming house, and we had a ball. We would bring our skates, and then we'd go over to the Friendlies on North Street and have an ice cream afterwards, and dead of winter, too, now that I think about it. But Boys Club had the skating rink there. There was a lot of things going on.
How did it feel to grow up in a large family? Because I only have a brother, and so it's just the two of us. But what's the feeling like to be a part of this unit?
Well, I mean, you're watered down because you got so many kids. So if you get in trouble, it doesn't last long. We have one that broke the ice, the oldest one, Sarah. And everybody wore out because of Sarah. I think she was just so smart and so busy. And by the time the little kids finished growing up, it was like, do whatever you want, just don't get in trouble too much,
Right.
But it was great. It was great. We were all like within a year, it was 8 kids in 10 years my mom had, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned that your mom would take you guys to Pontusic, and that's where you learn how to swim. I'm curious, did she have a certain technique? Because it's a large group of you, and learning how to swim is intense. So how did she do it?
So we always had one of those big old station wagons, and the window in the back would come down so we could all fit in there with the dog. And she would drop us off at Pontusic Lake. She'd set herself up at the picnic table up top. Yeah. And she'd read all day, and we would be down at the docks with Peg Downing or somebody giving us instruction. And I was always the last one to jump in over my head. And she said, "We're all waiting for Mary Caprio to jump in. It's 12 noon now." And finally, I jumped in over my head, and I learned to swim.
Wait, so you jumped in, and instinct kicked in? Or
she said, "You'll come up." And I did, because I didn't believe her for a long time. But
so you just floated up.
You float up, and there's no raft or anything. You just float up. I was terrified. And if I didn't have that back then, and a bunch of other kids, I'm not sure I would have learned how to swim.
Really?
So that was huge for us kids to all go down there.
Yeah.
And, there was concessions. There was bathing room there with a changing room. There was lifeguards. It was great.
So, with the work that's happening right now, so it must be like a full circle moment, right?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. We just moved over to Pontusic Lake, and I love seeing that used. It's such a beautiful scenery out there, and so much nostalgia for our family. All the kids from everywhere in the country now are writing back to me and saying, I remember taking swimming lessons, and I'm so glad you're over there. 4th of July was very busy at our house.
I was going to say, so is your house sort of like, the central meeting ground for everyone? Do they all come to you?
We just got there about a month ago, but the 4th of July, nieces, nephews, sisters, mother-in-law, everybody's hanging out on the porch.
I love it. I feel like it's such a great thing to have such a big family. I think if you're in a big family, then you probably have a different perspective sometimes, but they always say the grass is greener on the other side.
Yeah.
All right, so you graduated from St. Joe's High School, and then you went on to Pittsfield Public Vocational School of Practical Nursing. Did you always know that you wanted to be a nurse?
No, I wanted to be a hairdresser.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a switch.
But Mom said we got to have a nurse in the family, so...
And it was you.
I guess so. I was one of those cheerleaders in high school that really had trouble sitting down and studying. Mm-hmm. So I could give you any cheer, any stat on any kind of game going on with the sports. But when it came time to figure out what you were going to do in your future, hairdressing versus nursing, it was a toss-up, and I got into the nursing program over at Pittsfield Vocational School of Nursing, which was still at St. Luke's Hospital. We still had St. Luke's back in 1976 and 77.
Okay.
So we trained right there at Madonna Hall, went over to the new wing over at Berkshire Medical Center that had just been built. And, it was a great year. I focused, and I absolutely loved it. And I've been at Berkshire Medical Center for 44 years.
I want to go back to that point about the focus. I think that's good for people who, they may have kids who the kids don't know what they want to do. They'll come around.
They sure will.
Yeah.
You have to want it and like it, or you're not going to study, and I really latched on to it for some reason. I like the humanitarian part of nursing,
Well, you've been in the profession for just over 40 decades, and you have seen individuals at their most vulnerable. How, if any, has that impacted your perspective on life?
Well, I appreciate being able to walk, simple things, being able to think clearly. People that are incapacitated, or basically, when I say walk, if you can't walk, your life changes overnight. You're looking at possibly nursing home or long-term care, and depending on people. It's one thing if you have your arms out, but your legs are so important. So if you fall, you break a hip, your life is changing overnight.
Right.
So I really appreciate the simple things in life. And then when people are healthy and take care of themselves, that's huge.
Right.
That's worth money.
Right. No, I totally get that. My dad, he was an X-ray tech when we were growing up, and so he worked in multiple hospitals. And one of the things he used to say to my brother and I was that, don't take life for granted, and just being, grateful, like you said, for like the little things, because he saw sick children. You see sickness on so many levels, and it just provides you with that level of gratefulness and that perspective to not, take for granted each day or your health.
Right. Right. I mean, sugar, for instance. For the 4th of July, we all indulged and had all kinds of sugar.
Yeah.
And sugar is some kind of inflammatory thing, I think, because it's like you don't feel good the next day if you really go crazy with sugar and candy and sweets.
But sugar is in things that we wouldn't even think it's in. Sugar is in bread.
Yep.
Sugar is in ketchup. Sugar is in the most mundane, item you think, and you're like, why does this need sugar? And it has an impact on our diets. It has an impact on what we crave, and you don't even know you're craving it, right? It's this subtle addiction, right, that you don't even realize is creeping up on you.
It's got a heroin type thing to it with your brain. It really is, and that same receptor.
Yeah, well, I think having that perspective, you obviously took all of that, Mary, and said, I'm going to live my life to the fullest. And that's exactly what you did, because in addition to your profession as a nurse, you still found time to open up a space, Gallery 25, 25 Union Street. So tell me, you have this thriving career as a nurse. What prompted you to open up this space?
Well, I'm like my dad. He did 5 or 10 different things. He got bored easy. And, I had that creative right brain type thing anyway. And I appreciate art, and I appreciate baking and things like that with your hands. So the combination was a really good thing for me. And my landlord, Irving Cohen, at the time on Union Street, he was awesome. He said, sure, take that other space for a minimal amount and put some more art in there, because we had no room in the cake shop. So
we'll talk about the cake shop in a minute.
So for 10 years we showed art, and there was 20 artists upstairs above me, and every month we'd show somebody else's work, and we had a ball. We had art openings. Sue Geller, I mean, she had the best art opening. We wrote it in this little manual I wrote. She knew how to market her art and let people come to the party, and we had people out on the street that night, and she just showed her fantastic photography. And it was just one show after another. And then when the Cancer Center was being created over in Hillcrest Hospital, every single artist donated all kinds of work to decorate the Cancer Center after their show was done. It was great.
What would you say that this space, or how would you say that this space contributed to the arts movement? Because I feel like Pittsfield went through this sort of renaissance, and it's continuing to go through its renaissance, just a new iteration of it. But there was a time when literally the art scene was burgeoning, right? It was just blossoming. And you were a major contributor to that. And I think it's important for people to be aware of history, right? Because sometimes we see things and we just think that they just are, right? That they're just here, but there are people that work behind the scenes to get it to that place. And Mary is low key, she doesn't, wear all her, accolades on her sleeve, but she is a major force. And so how would you say that your gallery contributed to the local arts movement in Pittsfield?
Well, let's see. I ran out of space quick. I mean, those shows lasted a month each time. So we got to the point where we had a waiting list of 2 years of people waiting to show their work. And so Christine Hurley over at Downtown Pittsfield Inc. at the time, and Megan Wilden, all these great arts people and creative people said, hey, let's go door to door and see if Downtown Pittsfield, who's been dealing with the rubble and the construction, let's see if they want to show some work.
Nice.
And everybody said yes. Everybody gave us $100, and we got the thing rolling.
Nice.
Christine had seen this out in California.
Okay.
And so she says, I don't know what she called it. She didn't call it an arts walk. It was something else, a stroll or something.
Was it crawl?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And so Bagels too, of course, Susan was the first one to say yes. And it just went from there. She had already been showing art anyway.
Yeah.
And so in the beginning, we had like 40 places to keep track of.
Wow.
And that's when we wrote everything down in this manual.
Yeah.
And any proceeds from the manual went right back into the Artswalk program.
All right, so let's talk about First Friday's Art Walk. So again, going back to the things that we see, like today, when we hear First Friday's Art Walk, is pretty much like embedded into Pittsfield's art and cultural scene. However, this came to be officially on May 4th, 2012. But the genesis of Pittsfield's First Friday's artwork actually happened a year before. It was on a fall evening, and folks, believe me, this lore is not just stuff that is lurking in my head. There's actually a place where this history lies. But I want Mary to talk a little bit about that evening in 2011 when this event was conceived.
Well, I'll tell you, Joni Chaffee had her show at the Gallery 25. And a few other people had one down at the barber shop, which was near Mission. And, we got to thinking, hey, let's go see some other art. And there was only 3 or 4 places to look.
Yeah.
And that's when Christine Hurley was one. She said, we can do this.
Yeah.
And so we just started pounding on the doors. We're tripping over all the construction. And, the recession was hot and heavy still. And we just, we needed people in the stores. We knew that. Between the recession and the construction and everything, it was an all-time slow downtown for Pittsfield. And I remember the Storefront Artist Project years before where things were boarded up.
Right.
And we didn't want that to happen either. Everybody had spent so much time and energy on North Street. So like I said, everybody said yes. Anybody we reached out to said yes. We had a ball that night, and it just snowballed. And I happened to find a little cash in my checking account because I never balanced it properly. And I found a little cash and started making banners. And, Downtown Inc. wrote some wonderful grants, and we really did well.
Wow, what a time.
Yep.
Wow. So you have this manual here. So you brought a manual with you. So this manual, is it something that people request? Like, how do you give it out? I mean...
Well, I don't think people know about it too much, but when I first wrote it back in 13, it was published in 13, we went to the city of Philadelphia and talked to all the boroughs, the people that were in the boroughs that wanted to increase their cultural arts venues. And we gave them one of these manuals. And it walks you through what we found were very valuable items to start your program.
Oh, so it's a primer.
Yeah, it's really just to teach places who want to start doing this how to kind of, what we found was very useful, using your own logo, branding everything, sponsors, and how to reach out to merchants.
Yeah.
Because it's really a twofold thing. It's to increase businesses, their exposure and get people in the stores.
Right.
And then also to show some art.
Right.
Because, like I said, we had no space to show art. And to try to get into an art gallery, I don't know if you tried to do that recently, but you got to be somebody sometimes. You know?
I don't have the hand for that, Mary. I don't think anyone wants to see what I'm drawing.
Or photography even.
Yeah.
It's hard, and you can be an awesome artist.
Right. Is it a very, selective, group, or how does that
Juried,
work?
It's beyond me. I'm more basic.
Yeah.
Can we put our art, and some are abstract, some are photography, some are just beautiful portraits. Can we put it in the store and show it? There's no grading on it because what you like might not be anything like somebody else likes.
And isn't that what art is all about? It's in the eye of the beholder.
Absolutely.
I mean, someone might look at abstract art and say, I don't know what that's about. That's nothing. But to someone else, they're like, that's amazing. I think it's fascinating how artists who produce certain works that we revere today in their time, people kind of look at it like look at Van Gogh.
Oh, I know.
Right? I mean, today Van Gogh is like Van Gogh. But back in the day, I mean, he was tortured, couldn't really fulfill his life as an artist and really, so it's interesting how art appreciates.
Absolutely. This last Artswalk, last Friday, I'm into cartoons and that kind of character.
Yeah.
And I went into Methuselah and Ed Pelkey's incredible cartoon art, I guess you would call it. It was like Dick Tracy. I just stood there in awe. You've got to go see that show.
Okay.
It's in the back room past the dining area and the bar.
Okay.
And it's probably up the entire month like all of them are.
Thank you for that plug because I love art. So I want to check it out. And you just walk in. You just go right to the back.
Yeah, it's right past where the booths are on the left. And then you take a right.
Yeah.
And you can just walk in. It's a whole gallery set up. And I thanked everybody for setting that up because who's going to find that in a restaurant, in a bar?
You don't expect to see it.
No. And they could use that space for anything, but they've saved it for art.
All right.
And I think it's awesome.
I'm going to check it out. All right. So for those listeners just tuning in, my guest today is Mary McGinnis, founder of First Friday's Artswalk, owner of Mary's Carrot Cake, a longtime LPN, and she is a lover of all things home restoration. All right. So, First Friday's Artwalk is pretty much, it's embedded in Pittsfield's legacy, and we thank you for that. And hopefully if people want to access this manual, where can they go?
They can actually call me, and I'll give you a number, 413-464-2127. And I work with a printer who pops these out for me when I need them. And like I said, it's a donation to Pittsfield Cultural, Downtown Pittsfield Cultural Association, which is the nonprofit arm of DPI.
All right. Well, thank you, Mary. All right, so we're going to switch gears a little bit to the home stuff because I'm really intrigued about that. And you and your husband, Kevin, are currently working on your 7th home that you have restored. And you have said that you regard this work as sort of like a rescue, right?
Yeah.
And I know that you once owned a bed and breakfast in Lee. So do you think that this had any kind of bearing on your love for renovation projects?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. For some reason, and I couldn't tell you why, we want to save all these old houses.
Okay.
Maybe because I watch HGTV and see all the restorations. And right now I'm into California bungalows, and there's a guy out there that's just restoring all these bungalows.
So do you watch these programs and then get inspiration from it and say, we're going to do that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. And years ago I started with just a little log cabin I bought from my dad out in Richmond, and basically preserved it from all the bees and animals that were trying to get in it. And saved that until we could sell that and get the Victorian in Lee on High Street that we created into a small bed and breakfast. Okay. And that bed and breakfast for 7 years was so much fun.
Wow.
People would just come in from the city. They knew where their key was under the mat.
Yeah.
And they'd go to Main Street Lee and get their dinner and go to Tanglewood or Jacob's Pillow and chill. We couldn't even show them where the phone was. Everything was hidden.
How are you doing all this and still working?
Everybody was just glad to sit down and have a nice place to be after driving. And there wasn't much for internet back then. It was in '95 that we started all that.
Yeah, the internet wasn't. We didn't really have internet then.
No,
maybe AOL. Was it AOL? Did we have AOL? Simple,
very
dial-up.
simple. Everybody called me.
Yeah,
I knew where the key was. So yeah, they'd come in, and it was mostly summertime.
Yeah,
and you wished you had 50 rooms, back then. And we did that until we got a German Shepherd puppy, and she didn't want anybody in the house. So she jumped on a customer, and that was the end. We sold the house and moved up the street.
Wait, so that was it. That's what broke the straw in the camel's back.
Well, they say burnout is 6 years or 7 years, and we were right there anyway. Because really, your summers are work.
That's true. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It is.
I mean, having a house is a work. I mean, having a bed and breakfast.
And everything you make, you put back into the house. Chimneys, roof, sewer line, anything.
All right. So I have to ask, I have so many questions around this, but one, what draws you to these old houses? Like when you see it, what is the it factor? When you see a house, I know that there has to be some kind of like connection. So what is it for you?
Their history. Yeah, we called Joe Derwin up and asked him to do the study.
Okay.
He goes to the local library in Pittsfield and he does the study for us. He did the one on Pomeroy Avenue for us. 17 owners over there.
What was the history on that?
1847. A blacksmith was in there, and we're still finding metal, old iron and stuff in the ground.
Really?
Yep. And lots and lots of different people in and out of there over the years. But that place, that has really good bones. It's an old 9-room house. Yeah. And it's right in downtown Pittsfield. Yeah. And you can walk to everything.
I think I went to your house to pick up a cake.
You might have.
I think of. Yeah. And did you have like a little white fence?
Yep.
Around?
Yep.
It was a cute little white fence. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always looking in the ground to try to find marbles and different things from years ago. We're history lovers.
So I'm a history lover too. That's why I love this. Like I love hearing about these old homes. Now my thing, Mary, is that old homes, they have a lot of stories, and I'm wondering if you've ever felt energy in some of these spaces. Like, has it felt like, that's interesting? Or do the floorboards, do they creak?
The radiators. The radiators in the old Victorian on High Street, the Barrett House Bed and Breakfast. The radiators would talk to you. And there was an old school teacher that everybody was terrified of back then. And years ago, she lived in there, and I swear she was talking to us half the time with those radiators. And if she didn't like something that was going on, the radiators would be clanking more. And the Boston Globe featured that house on the cover of the real estate section. We were trying to sell it. And they said, bed and breakfast, and they asked if it was haunted or something.
Yeah.
But it was a good haunting, you know? She wasn't going to hurt us or anything.
No, I mean, that's the thing with the old homes. They have excellent bones, nice, strong character, but I do think about, like, the people who were there before. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting.
And then the materials they use, the chestnut wall,
that's
wainscoting.
You can't duplicate that today.
The cove molding, huge cove molding, and then the quarter sawn oak floors, parquet. To build something like that now, forget it.
You can't, and it's interesting too when people they cover it over, right? So sometimes when you strip away a floor and you say, "Wow, this was underneath." Who knew?
Yeah. We just found some beautiful, beautiful old fir floors when we pulled up all the carpet on this house on Ridge Ave. So we got them all sanded by Mr. Wendling. He came right over and we prepped it for him, and he sanded them all down.
All right. So how do you know when it's time? And you mentioned a time frame just now, but how do you know when it's time to move on from a new property?
I think it just happens. We were looking for a friend, who was coming to the area. And he passed on this one on the lake.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we'll keep looking for it. But my husband this time, Kevin, said, wait a minute. If Warren doesn't want it, why don't we take a look at it? I said, are you serious? Yeah. This would be number 7, and we're old now. So he's like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. So we go over there, and I think we had $1,000 because we had just done our whole roof over on the other place. Yeah. But they took our offer, and it was contingent on the sale of our other house, that kind of thing. And a contingency offer is kind of weak. Yeah. Especially in this market. Yeah. But he liked us, I guess, and he said, okay. And when the house didn't sell, the other one, we just went to a bank, and they were nice enough to give us a loan, and we bought this other one now.
All right. So you, it's lake living, and so I'm sure it's a different experience from Pomeroy.
Totally. This is wild out here. Yeah. 4th of July was wild. They had a boat parade out there in the water and fireworks, and everybody's walking their dogs. And, we got rabbits all over the place. And it's something else out there.
Mary's like, I have seen some things.
It's cool. I like it.
Nice. Yeah. All right. So I have to ask the magic question. Do you think this will be your forever home?
I'm too tired. I said that last time, though.
Yeah.
I think I'm too tired to even think of moving again.
Yeah.
But you never know.
You never know.
You never know. Don't tell my husband that. He'll have a heart attack. He's like, we are done.
Yeah. Moving is an endeavor in and of itself. Yeah. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
A ton of work. Yeah.
Well, definitely wish you luck with these projects. It's interesting. You should probably start a blog or something with all the work that you've been doing. I'm thinking.
Do you know what our day entails when we have a day off, which is a joke? You start by getting rags on, and you start getting all your brushes together. Yeah. And then you start painting after you've scraped. Yeah. And this one in particular has these funky little shingles because it's like a bungalow with all these little shingles. And they're frail. They're cedar, but they're frail. So you got to be careful. And so you scrape, you power wash, you let everything dry. You put your oil-based primer on first, and then you get your latex primer, or in your latex top coat, I mean. And you just go to town.
Well, I'm serious, Mary. I mean, I know that your hands are full. I mean, you're still working. You're still a nurse. You're still doing these projects. But you could do a master class on home restoration. See, I put it out there.
Well, my husband definitely, he's got all the lingo. In fact, he's catching me using the wrong stuff sometimes on the walls. And, he's like, wait a minute, what are you doing? Yeah. But so he's the foreman, we call him. But he gets tired too, and he starts forgetting. But I think we could try to do something like that.
I feel like there's a lot of folks who, I will say, during the height of the pandemic when we were all stuck at home, one of the things I tried to get into was just restoring pieces of furniture. Right. So I got a sander, and I fancied myself some novice carpenter or whatever. But I got a a sander, and I started to learn like primer and paints and different things. And, I restored like a piece of furniture that now, actually two that now, they sit in my home. But I found it to be really calming.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just you and the furniture. And then you're able to like look at your work.
This is so funny you're
Right?
saying that, because my grandma from Virginia, she taught us how to do that. And she was a big antique lover. So maybe that's where it all started.
Perhaps there's always like a root somewhere. Like if you think back, you can think about someone who like planted that seed, right?
Yep.
And so. Yeah, I mean, there are folks like myself who, I'm a beginner at this, but I'd love to find out like the do's and the don'ts, and if you want to, take it to the next level, what you can do. So
You got to have your people to sub out to, remember. Something like this, your go-to people.
Yeah.
And right now, it's tough because they're having trouble getting supplies and things.
it's a tough market.
It is, but don't think you can do it all yourself is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, see, I'm not trying to buy a house, Mary, and trying to turn. I'm talking about getting a little nightstand, all right?
Yeah. I think you're safe that way.
I think it's learning the art of different techniques and things like that. Definitely, I probably would have to watch some more HGTV to take it to the level of Mary and Kevin McGinnis, right? All right. So the home stuff is working well. I want to switch to sort of like the professional stuff right now. And in 2013, you did something really cool, which I think it sounds really cool. It was like the workplace campaign executive. Almost seems like Trade in Spaces, just the professional version. You were at Berkshire United Way, and I think you were working there on behalf of BHS. Was it like a Trade in Spaces kind of thing? What was that like?
Right. I think they still do it over there. A lot of the different businesses donate a person for 3 months or so to help with the campaign.
Wow.
And Berkshire Health Systems used me, and I went over there just about full time to help them with the campaign.
So interesting.
And it was real interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, going around
my gosh.
to all the different businesses. And people have campaigns all over the place for the United Way.
I know, yeah. I mean, that I thought it was really cool. I was like, wow, they just loan her out. All right, Mary, you're going over there. See you in 3 months. Bye.
You're better off not knowing. Just go. Find out later.
How cool. Well, I want to get to this part because later that year in 2013, you officially became one of my predecessors when you assumed the role of Director of Administrative Services under the previous mayoral administration. And you were able to take a leave of absence from BHS to do this work. So I got to ask, you're in the art world, you're in the medical profession, and then you step into politics. Mary, what gives?
Let me tell you, that was a shocker because you're suctioning tracheostomies 1 minute and then you're in the mayor's office. And I think if I didn't have people to turn to, because that's my strong point, tapping resources.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to do it yourself, but any kid who walked in that door that was on a college break or something, sit down. And they were awesome, every one of them. Jessica Russo helped us with the Shannon Grant. I mean, the Shannon Grant.
Yes.
I mean, Excel spreadsheets, all these things that nurses are not using, and not doing. But I was able to find out what people's strong points were and turn to them. And nobody turned me down. People were awesome.
Yes, I guess that speaks to, your unique style and basically how you did the work during your tenure. I think, being in the role too, I feel like everyone brings their unique perspective to it. I know that PIO, that's Public Information Officer for folks who may not know, that falls underneath this role. And I can say for myself, that is what I lean more toward. So there's the special projects and initiatives, which I do too, but my that's sort of like my strong suit. What would you say were some of the highlights for you that you're most proud of during your tenure?
Let's see. The senior tax work-off program.
Yes, which still lives on. We just matched our seniors this year.
Awesome. Well, I didn't even know what the heck she was talking about when they asked us to get that going. But we got a hold of the city of Marlboro, and they just sent us over a copy of what they do. And we kind of plugged in Pittsfield and our needs. And it worked. It worked.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great program. I mean, the seniors actually look forward to it because it gives them that abatement.
Yep.
And, when you're a senior, you're on a fixed, income, so every little bit helps.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Affirmative Action Advisory Committee, Jeff Hunt, and all the different people that were on that. I mean, that was just awesome. I mean, we were able to look at everything with no bias, just look at everything and say, how can we get things more diverse?
Yeah.
How can we let everybody have a chance to get a job?
Yes. Well, you know what? You have a unique vantage point because you've been on the inside and you see how the pendulum has swung to where now we have an office of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
I love it.
Could you ever imagine that?
That's awesome. That is so awesome.
Yeah.
I remember talking to Judy Williamson and Shirley Edgerton, all these people. And we were really starting from scratch.
Yeah.
And, I'm so excited that things have moved in the right direction that way.
Yes.
We can't all be related working together. It's just not fair.
It's, you know what? It's a wonderful thing. I mean, it's something that I know the people in our community have wanted for a long time. And I think just as how you just build upon the work, right? So it doesn't stop at the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. You continue to build on that so that there is a next iteration, whatever that looks like, so that the work continues to live on. And I think that's a part of our responsibility, right?
Absolutely.
To make those contributions that help to shore up the foundation.
Right.
You mentioned that you had there were people who you worked with that they went on to launch their careers. Would you say that this was sort of like a launching pad of sorts?
I mean, everybody who walked in that door had a future afterwards as long as they helped us out, and we always gave them a great referral.
Yeah.
And they knew they were helping too. I mean, there's a great feeling of contributing to the community.
Yep.
You can stay in your little cocoon if you want to. That's okay. But then there's this other level of being a part of what's happening in your area.
Right.
And to watch the farmers market get going with Jess and all the different people that were doing that.
Right.
It was exciting. It was exciting. Exhausting.
Yeah.
And you had so many different unrelated things going on at the same time. And I see you with your phone, but here I had papers everywhere.
I told Mary, I have the phone, but I still use paper. I still use a checklist. I like to write things down.
Yeah. And scratch them off.
I do. Because, I think, I love the phone, but I need to actually, I'm tactile. I need to, write it. I need to touch it. I need to see it.
Me too.
I need to cross it off. It gives that feeling of accomplishment. But I also need to see at a glance because there's so much, in that role. There's so much going on. And you're literally, you have multiple things happening at once. You need to actually have a way to stay centered and focused.
Right.
So paper helps. All right. So you had a lot going on, and you still had your Mary's carrot cake. I don't even know what to make of this, right? So we got home restorations, we have bed and breakfast, we have gallery space, and we have stints in politics. I mean,
I need a diagnosis.
And you're making cake. So tell me about Mary's carrot cake, right?
Well, that started well over 30 years ago. A bunch of us were working in the critical care step-down unit, and it was pretty tough up there. We had a lot of sad things going on with people that were trying to get better, and it was struggling. And one of the pulmonologists said, hey, let's have a cake contest. So all of us would bring in a cake every week, and we'd have to make it from scratch and share the ingredients. And I says, all right, I'll tackle carrot cake. And so Dr. Cordone and Dr. Ringler, all these different doctors are giving their 2 cents about putting more cinnamon in and nutmeg. And I finally got a 27-ingredient cake that was really good.
Yes. I must say, so Mary, my Aunt Daphne, one of her things was carrot cake. And no one could top my Aunt Daphne's carrot cake, right? And then I tasted yours, and I said, coming up close. I like Mary's carrot cake too. So now I have two favorites, right?
Did she use maple syrup?
You know what? I don't know what Aunt Daphne put in it. I mean, she has since passed away, but she used to write her recipes on index cards that are stained, right? And she would tuck them into her Betty Crocker or whatever cookbook with pages that are falling out, right? And so I was able to get her cookbook with her stained, oil-stained index cards, right? And I don't know what she put in there. I mean, we were kids when she would make the batter and we would lick the batter, right? And all of that. But it was so good. Yeah. But I said, Mary's carrot cake. I said, every time I eat it, it reminds me of my Aunt Daphne's carrot cake.
Because of those doctors. They kept telling me, you got to do this, you got to add that. So we just kept adding ingredients and the best of everything.
It's so delicious.
And it's obscene. No one would do this. So finally, I turned 50 and I said, I need a store. Yeah. I got to do that before I get too old. Yeah. So I was lucky enough to do it for 10 years, and we put clothes in there. We did everything right across from Barrington Stage.
Oh, yeah, that shop, I remember. Oh, I had the privilege of going into that little shop. You could get your cake and buy clothes.
That was crazy.
Yes.
But did we have fun?
Oh, it was great. Oh, my gosh, that was such a cute little store.
Yeah. We had the clothes too close to the sprinklers, and, we went crazy. But you know what?
That's okay.
Those are things to remember.
I remember it.
And cherish, because there comes a time after 10 years where you're like, okay, I cannot do this anymore.
Right.
And the hospital is getting very busy. The hospital right now has been very busy. Addiction is what I'm into,
Right.
The
You're at
detox unit.
McGee, right?
I'm at the McGee unit, right? 8 years now. So.
Yeah. You see some things.
I do. And you have to have compassion. You can't judge.
Right.
It could be you tomorrow if you get in a car accident or something and need Percocets. And, I'm telling you, it's not as far away as people think. And, it's family members you love. There's a lot of variables that happen with addiction. And it's just some people can escape it and other people just get sucked into it. But the biggest thing, our job is to let people know there's resources out there to help.
Wise words. You're right. It's, I think it's leaving that judgment at the doorstep and having that compassion and knowing, that, it could be you, could be your family, could be your friends, and just because it doesn't necessarily affect you personally, doesn't mean that you don't have to still have not have empathy, right, for those who are going through it, because it's a horrible thing, and it changes the dynamics of not only the individuals, their quality of life, but the people who love them.
That's right. It's a family disease.
Yeah, because everyone goes through it. It's not just the person, know.
Yeah.
So, that, again, meaningful work, and I could see how your heart just continues to expand. You have a lot going for you, Mary. You have done so much.
Thank you.
You have contributed so much to our community, to our county. So thank you so much for everything you have done. Thank you for everything that you are doing. And I got to ask, because, beyond the renovation work, which, you love, what are other things that you love to do that you find to do in your downtime? Is there even such a thing?
Okay, let me think. You know what? Walking the dog is really cool if she behaves.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, animals are such therapy. They really are. And then seeing other people's animals, too.
Okay.
I don't know if you have a dog or a cat.
We used to. I had a cat. Warren had a dog, but they've since passed on. So we have it. We have fish.
All right.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I mean, it's a commitment. It's a huge commitment.
It is.
And we're going to go to the Cape for a little while. And I got the dog, of course, because you can't bring the dog into the restaurant.
No.
And she's on meds right now to calm her down a little. But you can't really leave her too much in the vets. They don't want her.
Yeah.
She's been removed from going to the vets for the day because of her anxiety. But there's so much good about her that you just bring her with you.
Right.
And she just loves to swim, so we'll go to Nickerson Park out there and let her swim in the lakes. She tries to eat the sand, so we can't take her to the beaches too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, this dog is special. Special needs, I'd say.
Yeah.
But she's great.
I guess each pet, they bring their own special something. And when you're the owner, you have that bond. I didn't grow up with pets because where we lived at the time, we couldn't have them, right?
Yeah.
But I had a cat when I was, living by myself, and my cat was a rescue. Oh, and definitely, it's an experience that had I not gone through it, I would never know that bond. Yeah. It's definitely a bond when you become a pet owner. And Warren had Zana, his dog, and so when we got married, they became like brother and sister. It was like Zana and Mousy, and they have their personalities. Yep. They have, and you really don't realize this if you're not a pet owner. You don't even understand this whole dynamic. You just think, what are you talking about? No. But they have all of that, and they do bring you joy.
They sure do, and that's what life's all about: sharing joy and giving joy. And money's important too, but joy is your number one word.
Absolutely, it's the little things. You're absolutely right, because the money can come and go, right? And so if your money is tied into your happiness, then your happiness is relative, right? So you got to find something that anchors you. Got to ask you, would you ever consider opening up a gallery again?
An art gallery?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I don't have to. I just went over to the Clock Tower, and Eileen Richard over there has recruited, she's amazing. She's recruited like 6 different artists over there on the 3rd floor. There are so many pop-ups going on. I love it. I can go to Artswalk and see all the different people I remember 13 years ago and stuff. Right. And now they're all sprung up like a garden. And so, if I had time, sure. Yeah. I'd sit there and show art and have openings. Right. It's really great. Right. But there's a lot of different places now to show art. And so there isn't that huge need like there used to be. Right.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that, in thinking about just the fruits of First Friday's Artswalk, right? What we see today, like you said, it's that the garden has bloomed. You look downtown, you have the paint boxes. Right. We have the murals. Yep. My goodness, art abounds. It just, so I feel like we're now becoming synonymous with this art scene, and I feel like there's more to come. And we have Jesse Tobin McCauley just did that mural for Welcome to Pittsfield.
I love it. Yeah. You know how important it is to have an Office of Cultural Development in your city?
Huge.
I don't know if people know how important that is, that there's a budget for that, and that the city takes it seriously, but that is huge. Yeah. That brings people from all over.
Well, it's the acknowledgement, Mary, of that, because think about it. Remember there was a time in schools when budgets were, they had to trim budgets. Yep. The first thing to go, art and music. Right. And they would think these are not essential. But having gone through when I was, in elementary school, I was in public school, and part of that, you had art, you had music. And it's part and parcel of your education, because it strikes something in your brain. That's right. Right? And so it allows you to think creatively.
Yeah. And everybody isn't just math, science. There's a whole bunch of other people that have that right brain going.
Exactly.
And if you don't nurture that.
That's me, the right brain, right?
You got to nurture it.
Got to nurture it. And I'm just so thankful that we had, there was an awareness of that. And so I think for the city of Pittsfield, there is that acknowledgement that this is important, that we need to fund this office. We need to provide it with supports. We got a lot of exciting things happening. We have the Berkshire Flyer coming through the city of Pittsfield.
That's exciting. Yeah.
So
nice work.
Yeah, this Friday, rolling through.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. So all right. So I want to circle back to the carrot cake, because if people want a Mary's carrot cake,
they're out of luck.
What? Wait. The carrot cake is all finished? What's going on?
No, at the moment, I am in transition, moving. So we wouldn't dare bake and get our kitchen certified right now where I am at the house. And that's how I do it. I have a licensed kitchen at the house from the city of Pittsfield. When that is done, then I probably will start up again. But it's all up in the air after 30 some odd years. But if anybody wants a recipe.
Wait, Mary, you're not going to give out your recipe.
Well,
you shouldn't do that.
I want everybody to have their cake and eat it too.
I get it, but Mary, you got to think about this. I mean, you have built your business. I mean, I don't know about that, Mary.
It's about spreading joy.
I get it, but I don't know. I
dare anybody to do what I did, okay? Because 27 ingredients. Have you been to the grocery store lately? Do you know how much all those ingredients cost? So you're giving people cake is what you're doing. You're having people, you're selling cake and you're actually giving it to them basically, unless they want to pay $100 for a cake.
Yeah.
So at this point, if they want to spend the money, absolutely. Go for it.
And buy all those ingredients and
take the time to shred all those carrots. We'll play it by ear. Right now, we're focusing on house restoration.
Okay.
And there's lots of bakers out there.
Well, I know Mary's carrot cake, so, that's where my heart is. I mean, I recall going to Pomeroy and getting a frozen cake. Yeah. I forgot what it was for. I don't even remember now, but Warren was like, "Oh, we got to get a Mary's carrot cake." Like it's like just part of your lingo. We got to get a Mary's carrot cake, right? So I mean, it's just legendary.
You know what's really true?
Yeah.
I enjoy giving those cakes away as gifts more than I do trying to sell them. It makes people happy.
Oh. And such a big heart, Mary.
A cake. That's what we're talking about here.
I know.
No one's going to get rich.
You're right.
But it's a lot of fun.
Oh, you have a big heart, Mary. I have to ask you, who or what inspires you? Obviously, you have such a philanthropic spirit about you, and I feel like maybe you had some influences growing up, but what who or what helped you to be the person you are today?
Gee, that's a tough one. I had a grandma that was awesome. My grandma was the best. She treated us all individually, and there was 8 of us. And she taught us to share, and to love, and to always bake. She had baked goods all the time for us. And I think that early, influence.
Was she Italian?
No, she was from Virginia. She was blue blood, the Blairs of Virginia.
Really?
I had to hear about Pocahontas as our relative somehow. With John Rolfe. I mean, it goes way back to Jamestown.
Wow.
Yeah. So, Grandma, Janie Blair, her name was, and she was the best. She was just the best thing in the world for us. And she was spiritual. She wasn't super religious, but she was very spiritual and kind.
Yeah.
She was a good person.
Okay. So, that's fascinating to me because, one, I didn't know that you had roots going back, way back, because I'm thinking, all right, Baltimore, you're born in Baltimore. You just buried the whole lead, Mary. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Well, listen, as someone who did their ancestry DNA, I'm fascinated by all of that. Wow, have you done that? Have you traced?
I've been wanting to for so long. Yeah. My brother is in Utah, and he's Mormon, and he did a lot of study.
Okay.
But I don't think the DNA part. He just did the genealogy. And we know who everybody's related to, and that kind of thing. We have the family tree going.
So you know who's who, and you have does everyone have a copy of this?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, he was really into that.
That's great.
But the DNA part would be very interesting.
Yeah, the DNA, it's an interesting thing. It has allowed me to get some insights on things, and I want to dig deeper. And I feel like it's almost like the rabbit hole, because once you start, you can put your family tree together on Ancestry, and then you can, and then you're like, okay, who's who? Very fascinating. For me, I'd have to go back. I have to access records in Jamaica.
Yep.
So, but I'm thankful that they have there's a wealth of information now, and everyone's doing it. I mean, it's so popular now.
Right.
So popular. Yeah. All right. So, Mary, I have spoken about tons of things, but are there things that you would just want Pittsfielders to know? If there's one thing that you're like, what's that one thing that, maybe Pittsfielders today don't recognize or realize, what would that be?
Well, all I can say is the amount of volunteers in this city are phenomenal. And I don't know if people realize that, but there's so many different categories. You look at all the people working on the flowers in downtown.
Yeah, shout out to Pittsfield Beautiful.
I mean, there are so many good people here. The parade.
Pittsfield Parade Committee. Yep.
Do you know how much work that is?
Tons of work. I wasn't, I could just, I wasn't part of it, but, I saw the amount of volunteers, the months and months of work. I mean, these people are dedicated.
Yeah. And they're not asking for anything.
No.
Yeah. And you don't see that everywhere.
No.
And so the thing I noticed when I was in the mayor's office was there are so many giving people in this community. And, you can open up newspapers and listen to negativity, and there are things that are not happy going on too. But I think the good stuff outweighs the bad stuff by 100%.
Agreed.
I really do.
Agreed.
And you have to look at that if you want to stay positive.
Agreed. Wise words.
And then if you want to look at some of the architecture in downtown Pittsfield and the restorations going on and the people that have invested, I mean, Milltown Capital, they didn't have to pick Pittsfield. All these people that are putting money into the community.
Right.
And George Whaling was one of the forerunners, God bless him, That's great.
Yes, a lot happening, and Pittsfield is a beautiful city, and I always tell folks it's just about your perspective, right? And sometimes for people to truly appreciate their surroundings, they sometimes have to leave. And then come back and realize that it's maybe not what you thought it was. It's better, right?
Yeah.
It's so much better, right? But I think sometimes some people have to. They have to do that. They have to leave. They have to come back and say, wow, I so appreciate my city. You don't find it anywhere where, the level of collaboration here is phenomenal.
Yeah. I think leadership is important, too. You've got to have a positive attitude.
Yep.
You can't fight with people.
Right.
There's somebody complaining every time you turn around.
Absolutely. You have to be able to, we had a visit from the mayor of Ballina who stopped into the mayor's office, this whole, the Irish Sister City and Sister Cities Commission. They had a reception. And one of the things that, I mentioned to him, I said, you can't follow after every negative comment. You can't, because you'll wade into the abyss.
You get sucked into
You'll be sucked in, and all the life will be drained out of you. So you have to be strategic and thoughtful about how you respond and what you put forth as your message.
Well put. Yeah.
So, that's what we always have in our minds in the mayor's office, and
the art of diplomacy.
That's
and
right.
You guys have it.
The art of diplomacy rules. All right, Mary, I want to ask you if you had to choose one word to describe you, what would that be?
Oh, you got me good. You got me good. Spread joy. Joy is the word.
All right.
Joy.
All right. All right. I think that's perfect. Well, thank you, Mary, for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure. And folks, you've been listening to Backstory. Let's hear it on WTBR-FM Pittsfield with Roberta McCulloch-Dews of the Mayor's Office in the city of Pittsfield. Thanks for listening, everyone, and have a great day.